What is the state of America's health?
Terrible. I mean, you consider that somewhere approaching 80% of people are overweight or obese. Half the people have heart disease. Probably at least 70% of them are constipated. Yeah, we're in terrible shape. And it's not that we don't deserve the health that we're in, because we do, but most people don't understand the full implications of why they're in the health they're in, how they're being lied to by the food industry and, medical business and so on. It's all profit driven misinformation. That's all. It's not a conspiracy. It's just profit driven misinformation. And as a result, the consumer suffers and the profits go on.
When you say that starch was the traditional diet of people, what foods specifically are you referring to, and which people are you speaking of?
Well, starch is something produced by plants. Only plants can make sugar. They make glucose. And they do it by taking carbon dioxide from the air, water from the ground, and with the use of sunlight, they turn it into sugar. Some of those sugars are stored. They're stored in the roots, and they're stored in other parts of the plants. Now, they're stored for the plant's own needs because after a long winter, they have to become anew. So they have to germinate or sprout. And that's why they store the sugar in their parts, such as the underground storage organs, which are potatoes and sweet potatoes and bulbs and corms, or above ground storage organs, which are your seeds in the form of grains and legumes. So that's why starch is there. And it's, you could think of it as plant parts that contain high concentrations of healthy calories, which are sugar calories. And when they're the plant, of course, they're in excellent shape. All large successful populations of people throughout all of verifiable human history have obtained the bulk of their calories from starch. Now, what we're talking about are the American Indians, who were people who ate corn. And that extended down into Central America, where you have the Mayans and the Aztecs, which were known as the people of the corn. They lived for 1,300 years. They had civilizations for 1,300 years on corn. They had sporting events. They fought battles. They had children, for 1,300 years on corn. And if you go further south, you go to the Andes and you look at the Incas and people living in that region of the world, and they're known as potato eaters. There are about 400 to 600 different species of potatoes in that region of the world. And these potatoes have provided the bulk of the energy for people in that part of the world. Except kind of interesting, when the Incas went to battle, because potatoes were so heavy to carry, they switched to quinoa. If you go to Europe and you look at the breadbasket of the world, you remember in that region of the world, the breadbasket of the world. But why did they call it the breadbasket of the world? Because people lived on wheat and barley and other types of grains. And bread is the staff of life. Always has been, always will be. If you go further east and you look to the Asian countries, what immediately you're struck by are rice eaters. In China, their welcome in the morning is not "Good morning, how are you?" It's "Have you had your rice today?" So wherever you look in the world, what you find is that up until recently, large successful populations of people obtained the bulk of their calories from starch. And the exceptions were the royalty, the aristocrats, the kings and queens of the past, which there were just a few of in the past. And now, because of the Industrial Revolution and because of the harnessing of fossil fuels, we have a world of kings and queens and restaurants to feed them, like Burger King and Dairy Queen. And, it's just a sad situation. Even if you are what would be considered a less economically fortunate person, the cheapest food available to you comes from these fast food restaurants, which serve you the food of kings and queens. So you get the diseases of kings and queens. And some of you can relate to the the fat king sitting on the throne with his gout-inflicted foot. And he's surrounded by sickly-looking aristocrats. And, it's a typical scene. People have known about it for thousands of years. So the human being is a starch eater, a starchivore, a starchitarian. And until you figure that out, you just don't know what to eat. Nothing works. You're into the traditional way of eating, the American diet, which is a meat and dairy-centered diet. Or you get into an offspring of vegetarian diets, which are difficult at best. And these are diets that focus on non-starchy green and yellow vegetables. They go by the name of nutritarian diets. They tell you to eat lots of kale and broccoli and lettuce and all kinds of these green and yellow vegetables. Well, I'm going to tell you, this is hard to sustain because there's not enough calories in these green and yellow vegetables. You starve to death. It'll take 11 to 20 pounds of cabbage to feed me for the day. I don't have that kind of time to eat. So that can be a problem. Of course, you also have, we could get into vegetarians in general. They're a spectrum all the way from chicken and fish eating vegetarians to vegetarians who live on all kinds of junk food. So starch is the diet for people.